All right, beautiful humans. Welcome. Welcome to the Create Your Own Reality Clinic. I'm excited. So I'm going to give it a minute for everyone to hop on since we are live. As you join us, please say hello in the chat. Please let me know where you're from. We always have people from all over the world, and it's always so fun to just welcome all of our people from all over the place. Hello, Melody and Coffee with Claire, and Amy and Melissa from Team Hey You Human. So yay, guys. We are going to have we're going to have fun. You are going to learn a whole lot. You are going to be able to actually start creating. This is a clinic, so we're going to do some work here. Hello, Charlie and Nicole, Christina, California, Switzerland. I love it. All right, all over the place. Hello. Oh, Turkey. I know where you're from. So, yay. So, what are you guys excited about? What are you excited to learn? Denver, Colorado, England. I love it. What do you get confused about when it comes to creating your own reality? Because I feel like when it comes to creating our own reality, it's like deep down inside, we know it's possible, but like we don't really think it's like 100% possible. Like maybe we can like choose different things or change certain things, but like, can it really be exactly what we want? And I think personally, there's a lot of really bad information out there as well when it comes to the whole creating your own reality and manifesting and things like that. And so in these 3 days, my plan is to really clear things up for you, really help you understand this concept and apply it to your life better. I'm excited to learn a non-toxic way because yikes, at the Neville. Oh, yes. There's a lot of self-doubt, right? Yes. Hello, Jill. I know YouTube. We've recently started doing our events on YouTube, so it's kind of a new experience. You wanted to get off of Facebook. We have our own, for those of you that are new to us, we actually have our own platform, our own Hey You Human app, which is amazing, but you do have to like sign up to get on there. And so it was kind of creating a barrier for people to like, get in easily and share the event easily. And so we're trying it here on YouTube, and I'm really excited about it. They believe nobody is real and they can control everything. Well, it's all about what you believe. And there's a lot of toxic stuff out there when it comes to creating your own reality. Something I'm going to talk about today is kind of how we often can get really shameful on ourselves when our reality isn't what we want it to be. Because creating our own reality really teaches us that like it's kind of all of our responsibility, right? Like we're creating everything. And so often you find people really make a lot of meaning about that. When things aren't working out for them, you kind of shame yourself. What's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? And often we kind of bypass some of the shitty things that people and the world that's happening in the world because we're like, well, I'm creating it and da 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 da. And so we're going to kind of talk about that and dispel how that works a little bit as well. Yes, your thoughts create. And we're going to talk about that too. Question, will this be triggering for me? I don't know, Charlie. I can't tell what's going to be triggering for you. We'll have to see. But at the end of the day, the whole thoughts create your reality is not exactly true. The quality is excellent on YouTube. Okay, yay, that makes me so happy because a lot of times, that's really why we got off the Facebook was because like it's always like and not working well and and a lot of people aren't on anymore. So yeah, we're really happy to be here on YouTube. So yay, welcome everybody. So if you are new to our world, welcome. If this is your first time joining one of our events, my name is Sarah Longoria. Hello. I am your host for this beautiful event, the Create Your Own Reality Clinic, where we're really going to be breaking down how to actually do this, because it truly is how life works. And I'm going to really talk about this, and I'm going to talk about it from a science perspective too, because I think a lot of times when it comes to the whole create your own reality and the whole manifesting type stuff, we immediately think that this is some kind of woo-woo, new age kind of concept. And it's not. It's not. It's actually how the world works. There is a whole big new age movement, like the whole positive thinking, your thoughts become your reality, blah, blah, blah. That's actually not how this works. We're going to actually talk about it and break it down from a science perspective. My background's in biomedical science and neurophysiology. So like your brain and how your brain and your body work together. And then I have a lot of training in energy medicine and energetics and like kind of like how the energy in our bodies work. And so kind of bringing those together, I've really been able to create a unique understanding for how this works and a unique way to explain to all of you how this actually works, because it is, your life will never be what you want it to be until you truly understand the fact that you're creating it. And where it gets confusing is that, wait, if we're all creating our own reality, that means we're in a world with 8+ billion, 9+ billion other people creating their realities. Oh, yes. And then there's also strong collective realities that get created too, that often override your own reality. And furthermore, all the other non-conscious creation, which is what we're going to focus on here in day one, that happens. And so it's going to be exciting, you guys. I'm so excited. I really, really, really am excited to be with you guys for the next 3 days, talking about this, really diving into it. So let's start with a little overview of the event, a little bit of housekeeping, then we're going to dive in. So first and foremost, 3 days right here on YouTube, same place, same time. Yes, I believe in reality shifting. We're going to get to it. We're going to break it all down. And you guys will be amazed that once you really start to learn the concepts I'm teaching and really start to do some of the things that nobody really talks about that you need to do when it comes to creating your own reality, you'd be surprised actually how quickly you can actually shift it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that on day 2, which is all about our DNA, biohacking our DNA. Because a lot of the reasons we have a hard time shifting the reality is because of how strong the collective creation is and how strong our ancestral and non-conscious, our nervous system and our DNA creation is, and how we have never really been taught how to become aware of what's in there. And so that's what we're really going to be breaking down. Like, how do you really become aware of what's in there that you didn't know was in there, so that you can start shifting your reality in the way you want it to? So same place, same time, right here for the 3 days. We're going to probably run about 40 to 60 minutes. I'm going to try my best to do it in the shortest period of time as possible. I know you guys have all sorts of things and life to take care of, but I really don't also want to do a disservice to you and try to rush through it and leave out things that I want to make sure you understand, and concepts and things I want to make sure I walk you through. If you've never done an event with us, with Hey You Human, and me and any of our team, these events are really good. They're not just these events where we just talk about stuff and then we're like, oh, if you want to actually learn how to do it, come join our program, which I will talk about our membership throughout, and I will really talk about it on the last day. So stay tuned for that. But what we're going to give you here is tangible enough steps in all of this to start implementing it into your life now. The memberships just make it so much easier and more fun. It's always more fun with friends. It's always more fun when you have somebody to ask, but we'll get to that as we go through it. I know we probably have some of our members here that are already in there and love it and can talk about how great it is, but we'll get to that later. So 3 days. Today, I'm going to be kind of giving you a little bit of my story so you understand like why I know 100% for certain, no doubt in my mind, that we create our own reality. Like, I just know it. I know it. And I'm going to talk about why it doesn't matter your socioeconomical background, all of that stuff. Because at the end of the day, the world that we live in is not an even playing field. And we're going to talk about that too, based on what your ancestry looks like, based on where you grew up, all sorts of stuff, how you look, based on the subconscious bias that runs throughout our world. It's not necessarily an even playing field for the system and the collective reality that's been created. But what we're going to talk about is how to pull yourself out of the system so that that doesn't keep kind of like pulling you back down. I have some doubts about it. Is it possible to live as a completely different person with a different face, family, body? So I mean, shift into complete different reality. You know, that's an interesting question. And I actually will say, yeah, it is. We are limitless beings on a limitless field with limitless potential. Now, the problem you'd have to get into is like, could you actually program and code and believe that to the extent that you could actually create that? That might actually be hard to do based in the reality that we live in. But that's quantum physics right there, friend. You can go read quantum physics. You can go read Albert Einstein stuff. You can go read all of that, and they'll say exactly that. You can literally, everything that we are viewing and looking at is just a projection of our brains, just a projection of it. And so if we just change, this is science, if we just change what our brain, now the interesting part, and we're going to talk about this, is the brain's actually not the super center. It's actually your body, your nervous system, your neuropeptides, and your DNA that's actually sending all of that to your brain to then tell it what to actually see. And so there's more work to do. A lot of people think creating your own reality is just focusing on what you want. Nah, friend, that's not going to work. And that's why, even though this concept has reached more people than ever before, less people are able to do it because it's not actually how it works. My issue is that when people talk about thoughts create reality, they don't understand how distressing that it is for someone with OCD, because it's not, it's BS. I think there's a different answer. You know, it's just, there's a lot that goes into it, guys. There's a lot more than just, I want this, I'm going to focus on it, I get it. And we're going to break it down for you step by step. We're going to talk about what's standing in the way, how you start working through it, and how you get over those obstacles so you can start creating more of what you want. So you guys feel free to keep dropping comments and things like this. I may, if I see one and it sticks out to me, I may respond. I also may just ignore all of them. Sometimes I just gotta give you the goods. And sometimes if I go off on a tangent too long, but feel free to keep dropping them. I'll go back and read them later. Sometimes I'll see them and it will perfectly in. Sometimes the team will respond and whatnot. So feel free to keep commenting and keep bringing the engagement, dropping questions, all of that good stuff. So today we are going to be really focusing on non-conscious creation and understanding that the majority of what we're creating in our lives, we're not even conscious of. We're not even aware of it. You'll hear often people will say things like, you need to understand your subconscious and become aware of it. And that's the first step. That's quite honestly not even the first step, because most of us aren't even aware. Like, we're looking at these patterns. Like, we know, we're already aware. You're already aware of the shit you don't want in your life. Am I right? You're already aware of the things that are happening in your life that you're like, good, I don't want that to happen. And you're likely also aware of some of the things you also want. And so when they say like, oh, you need to get aware, like most of us are like, well, yeah, I am aware. Like, I don't want my kid to keep like yelling at me. Like, I don't want to keep overdrafting my account. I don't want to keep, not getting clients in my business. Like, most of us are aware that what we want and what we don't want. But the deeper part is not the awareness of, yeah, I see this is happening and I don't want it. But like, why? Why am I creating this? And that is where the mystery often is. That's where it's very mysterious. It's like, oh, why am I doing this? Why does this keep happening? Ugh. I'm doing all the things. I decided I want something different, but bam, it keeps happening this way. Why? This is often the stuff that's deeper than our subconscious. This goes to our nervous system, and this goes into our DNA and our DNA expression, and how our neuropeptides are sending the signals between DNA expression, nervous system into the brain to actually control what we end up doing and what we end up seeing and how we end up reacting and living in this life. And so it's more complex than I think the majority of the gurus want us to believe. Now, what's interesting is often people can come across the create your own reality and your manifestation techniques. They can focus on the thoughts and the things, and they'll often completely change their life. And so they're like, bada boom, bada bing. It worked for me. Why ain't it working for you? Right? Well, it worked for me. Often, and you see this a lot in this world, you see this work a lot for the demographic of people who have already had a DNA or a look to them that works with the subconscious bias, the subliminal consciousness that exists, that fits into that mold. And they may have already come with a DNA that says, you get to have money. You get to be happy. You da 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 da. So there, when they change and focus, the other stuff matches. But for 99% of us, it doesn't match. It doesn't match. You're focusing on something and your body's basically being like, no, sorry, reject, reject, reject. Doesn't match. And so we got to learn to go to the deeper layers and understand what are we non-consciously creating and how do we change it. And so today we're going to really do kind of an overview of how creating your own reality works. We're going to talk about non-conscious creation. Tomorrow, we're going to get into the biohacking of the DNA, what that really looks like, how we actually do it. And then the last day, we're going to talk about our rapid relief technique and bringing it into your life to really start removing all of those obstacles to shifting your DNA and your nervous system so that you can start welcoming in more of what you want. I'm also going to pull together on that day the 7-step formula, which is really cool, you guys, because as I've been like creating this formula, it's actually something for all of our members. I'm actually going to be going into more detail on for you guys in our membership, because it's kind of going to give you a little bit of a road map. So basically like, okay, this is happening in your life. Where do I go from here? This is happening in your life. Okay, where do you go from here? Okay, you went here. This is happening. You know, it's going to help give you kind of like a formula to where do you go based on what's going on in your life, so that it really helps you continue on your journey and continue creating more of what you want in life. Okay, somebody said I froze. Am I frozen for just coffee with Claire? Can the rest of you still see me? I just want to make sure before I keep going on. But hopefully, okay, you're not frozen. Okay, Claire, you might want to just like jump out and come back in. So I'm good for everybody else. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's dive in, friends. Let's dive in to how this all works. Let's learn about the creating of your own reality, and then we're going to drop in to the non-conscious creation. We're going to get the first couple steps to the formula, and then we're also going to have some homework to really dive into and really start doing this. So there's a couple things you have to understand when it comes to creating your own reality. First and foremost, we're creating it all. You're creating all the stuff that's happening in your life. As a collective, as a big group of people, we're creating on a broader scale. what's happening in the world in different parts and populations. The same world is available to all of us. Anything that's in this world is available to all of us. It's just a matter if you're able to believe it, see it, receive it, and know that it gets to be for you. Now, the problem with this is the understanding of, and there's two things that happen when it comes to this first thing, that understanding that you're creating all the time. When people say like, oh, do you want to learn how to manifest? You don't need to learn how to manifest. You are manifesting all day, every day. I don't need to actually teach you how to create your own reality. You are creating your own reality all day, every day, along with the collective conscience, which is creating our bigger reality. What I'm going to teach you is how to create what you want in your reality. How to create what you want and stop getting all the bullshit stuff that you don't want, but you're creating that too. And the confusing part here that we have to remember when it comes here, because this is where a lot of times the self-shame comes in this world. When you get into the personal development and the coaching world and the manifesting world, it can get real shamey, where it's like, well, nobody does anything wrong because you created this. So let's break that down a little bit, because a lot of times we attach so much meaning to this that doesn't work. And this happened so much in my journey. It happened so much where I made a meaning, and I'm going to tell you my story in a bit here. I made so much meaning about what it meant about me when things weren't working out for me. Hey, Michelle. I made it mean so much about me. I self-shamed myself. And so when people were doing shitty things to me, I was like, okay, well, I've attracted this into my reality. What's wrong with me? Why would I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And I kind of often always let everybody off the hook in a sense. Almost like nobody does anything wrong. This is all stuff I'm creating. And eventually I had to realize that no, like there are shitty people that do shitty things. Shitty things happen in this world. And so it's not to say, because a lot of the create your own reality world can really get kind of victim shamey. Like, oh, well, you created that. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I have something going on within me that allowed for this experience to show up. Like, I'll give you an example in my life. Like, for a long time, I consistently and continually would bring women into my life that I just wanted them to love me. It was kind of like my mother wounding, right? We're going to dive into wounding throughout these 3 days. It was like I didn't get something from my mom. And so I was left with kind of this big old hole inside of me. And I just wanted that to feel whole. And instead of dealing with the emotions around this, releasing all of them and finding it within myself, which we're going to learn how to do here, I was trying to find it in my external world. And a lot of us are doing that. A lot of us are looking for love in all the wrong places. We're really trying to find the things that we want in material objects and people. And there's nothing wrong with material objects and people. But when we're trying to fill our own void with them, this is where you're giving your power completely away to them. And so I would consistently attract these women into my life. And then I would be so upset when they hurt me, when they abandoned me or just kind of used me. And just like, I was like, what the hell? But I was like, I'm creating this. Like, I just need to grow and learn from it. And I don't want to say like feeling like nobody ever does anything wrong. It's always me. Well, no, actually, those people they treated me shitty in a lot of instances. Now, the deal is when it comes to creating your own reality is to not blame them. They did this to me. This means I'm not good enough. This means I'm not lovable, which is often what we do. And those feelings that come up do need to be understood and processed, which we're going to talk about more on day 2 and day 3. Water, hold on. But I want you to go into this creating your own reality thing and realize that if your life is not where you want it to be, this is not the time to sit here and be like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. I'm so dumb. Why can't I do this? No, you can do this and you will do this. And you are capable of doing this. You just haven't been taught all how to do this. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean anything about you if you are, still trying to figure this life out. It means you're a freaking human that's trying to figure this life out like the rest of us. And so really breathe that in and really bring that energy to these days together so that you're not feeling like whenever we just add more ick to it, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. But like I said, we're going to learn how to get the ick out because a lot of us have a lot of ick that's stopping us. So how does creating your own reality actually work? So we're creating all the time. That's the first thing we have to remember. Second thing we have to remember, the universe, God, Jesus, Allah, Buddha, whoever it is you believe in, this, the co-creator that we're working with, right? We're a body. You're this body, this human, but you're also this energy that's inside of you, right? You don't see your thoughts. You don't see your emotions, but they exist. There's something to you that exists beyond this physical thing. Call it a soul, call it a spirit, call it whatever you want to call it. I'm pretty accepting here when it comes to all the different pieces and parts and the different names for them, but like whatever you want to call that, your divine essence, there's another piece to you. And that's really your magic. That's your power. That's your co-creation with the creator. You are of the creator. You are the creator. We're all the creator. It's a really kind of human mind-blowing concept when you really allow yourself to take it all in. It's kind of a crazy concept. And that's one of the things about being human is we're very human. We're very real reality life, but then we're also this other thing. And so it's almost like living in this dichotomy of I am a super powerful, almighty creator, but I'm also this human that gets sick and farts and cries and makes meaning out of no meaning. Like, yeah, right? We're these two things. But at the end of the day, together, we're creating. And the thing about this realm is that the universe, God, whoever it is, your divine essence never says no to you. Ever. Ever, 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 ever. You ask, you receive. Period. You desire, it begins the process of being created for you. And I remember when I first got into this whole create your own reality, manifesty kind of world. And I remember someone saying that to me, like, oh, all the money you desire, it's already here. And I remember being so annoyed. Like, I was like, really? Really? Is it here? Because I'm pretty sure I just overdrafted my bank account. And I'm pretty sure like these 5 things happened. So like, is it here? Because like, where? And so I get it. I get how frustrating this concept can be. And even guys, after I mastered this concept, I still went through a period where I completely shut it out, disregarded it, thought it wasn't how the world worked because I was so frustrated, but came back to understanding more than ever that this is how it works. And this is really my story. And this is really why I'm able to sit here with you guys and go through this with you and tell you that, yeah, I know 100%. There is no doubt in my mind that this is how the world works, that you need to know all of this if you want any chance in creating what you want in life. If you want to know your power, if you want to know abundance, if you want to know happiness and all of these things, this is how it works, period. So, probably I don't even know, a decade ago, maybe I started to come across this kind of concept of like create your own reality. And it really took me a while to get into it. But once I got into it, I really kind of dove completely into it. And what I started off with was kind of the traditional stuff, like the Abraham Hicks, the Mike Dooley, the whole your thoughts become your reality. Think a better feeling thought. And at first, it all worked. Like it worked really quickly, but then it stopped working. It was like things changed in my life, but then it like stopped working. And it was like things got hard and things weren't working. And it was just like, it was so stressful to constantly be trying to create these things. Like I can't even explain it. It was so stressful. And eventually I kind of had my life fall apart and was kind of like, what the hell? Like, I thought I was creating my own reality here. I didn't want my life to fall apart. I didn't want all these bad things to fall apart. And it's interesting because often when you decide you're going to start creating your own reality and you decide you want a bunch of new things, and I'm sure this has happened for a lot of you, you decide you want all these new things, you're here for it, you're going to change your life, you're ready for it. And it's like, all of a sudden, it's like shit hits the fan. And you're like, what the hell? I thought I was going to change my life. I thought everything was going to work out for me. And now it's worse than ever. And I hear this a lot with the whole create your own reality. People will say, I tried that. And then my life got worse than ever. And so like, that's not how it works. No, it actually is. And this part where shit hits the fan is actually very important, very needed, and part of the process. It's just nobody teaches us what to do with it. They just teach us to ignore it. And ignoring it is the number one worst thing you can do. Ignoring it and your feelings and emotions that go along with it is the number one worst thing you can do, because then it just keeps you spiraling out. But don't worry, we will get to all of that. And so I really realized that how we were doing this whole create your own reality thing wasn't working. And I started doing it differently. And this is where the rapid relief technique came from. And this is what we're going to talk about, that full process on day 3, but it kind of builds on the couple days together. But this was really where I was like, ding, 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 ding. I have figured out some of these missing pieces. And this is where I started to see my life really start to change. And I was just like, holy shit, like I'm creating magic here. Like I am literally, like people would say, like, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I teach people how to do magic. And it was like magic. And many of the people who have been in our world for a long time can attest to this. I mean, it's like magic once you realize how to do it. So we did it. I mean, multi-million-dollar business built, perfect life with my family and health. And this was all during like the COVID years too. Like I'm just like living life during COVID. Like our health has never been better. We're traveling like we've never traveled. Like we're like just living an amazing life during this time, because I was like, I'm just going to do it. Like I'm going to do it. And I had done all the work, all the internal work to really make it happen. Because at the end of the day, you guys, you're not creating with this guy. You're not creating with your brain. You're creating with your nervous system, and you're creating with your DNA expression. So your DNA basically runs the show. Just like it tells what diseases you're going to get, what your eyes are going to look like, what hair color you're going to have, it also tells you how happy you get to be, how much joy you get to have in your life, how much money you're going to feel comfortable with, how, all of these things. And then it's reinforced by your nervous system that then communicates with your brain. And then often it gets triggered by your external events. So just like diseases, you might have the trigger for lung cancer. You might never have lung cancer, but you might work in a plant that has this, 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 and this, and that triggers that factor to get activated, and bada bing, bada boom, you have lung cancer. So often some of the stuff that's passed on in your DNA can be overridden by the environment and stuff you're in, but often it isn't. And when it isn't, the great part is we have all these like safety mechanisms as humans that tell us how to deal with it and get over it and override it and evolve past it. Just we're not doing that. We're not evolving past it. Instead, we're just staying stuck in it. And we don't want to stay stuck in it. You don't want to be stuck in your patterns. You don't want to be sitting there being like, God damn it, why is this happening again? You want to evolve past it. And that's what we are going to teach you how to do. So you're over it. So anyways, so I got to this place where I was like, Oh, I did it. I created my own reality. Everything's amazing. Ta-da. And I kind of stopped doing the work, like in the sense that I just wasn't putting as much attention on really following my formula and really making sure I was surrounding myself with the right stuff. And I let a couple people get into my life that really influenced me. And I started to believe what they were saying. Because at the end of the day, you guys, it's all about what you believe. That is the truth. What you believe is what you see. What you believe is what you create. And it's reinforced by your thoughts, and it's reinforced by your environment. And it's supported by your deepest belief system, which is your DNA and your nervous system. And your nervous system and your DNA will always win. And so here's what I learned during this period, because all of a sudden I had created this incredible life. And all of a sudden it started to get all wonky. It started to get all wonky. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I did it. But I started to listen to some people in my life that weren't very helpful, telling me, well, maybe it was a fluke. Maybe you don't really create your own reality. Maybe that was just like a pure coincidence. And these little things, right? They got in. And remember, at the end of the day, prior to creating what I wanted, I had very much created what the collective consciousness creates. What does the collective consciousness create? Well, take a look at the world. Take a look at the world. You can see where our dominant DNA is living right now. And depending on where you live in the world, it's going to be a bit different. But for the most part, it's fear, lack, separation, unsafe, unfree, controlled. Not enough money, not enough time, not enough love, not enough resources for the world. That's what the world tells us. Now, I had detached myself from that and started doing some really incredible things in my life. And the best part about this is when you detach yourself from the reality and you start doing some really incredible things in your life, you often are then able to kind of like reach back and help the collective reality. You can start helping them solve their problems, because at the end of the day, guys, every problem we have in this world, a solution 100% already exists. We just need to be able to see it. I mean, there was a time where we used to dump sewage out into our streets and the whole city stunk and everybody had diseases and it was gross. And then we were like, that's not working. And yes, it did take us decades to get sewer systems going and everything like that. But eventually we solved that problem. So we keep looking at our world and thinking it's going down the shitter and it's the worst time it's ever been. No, this is always how the world. Go read a history book from the 1700s. Go read some writing from the 16s or 1500s or even later. Go read from freaking AD. You know what they're going to say? This is the worst time alive. The world's falling apart. Wars, famine, disease. The banks are collapsing. You can literally go back into any time in history, and it's the same damn story. Same damn story. Different, might look a little bit different. Same damn story. Because the collective consciousness just keeps repeating. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Fear, war, destruction, not enough. We're always fighting because there's not enough. There's not enough time. There's not enough energy. There's not enough money. There's not enough love. There's not enough anything. So we're always fighting. We're always dividing. And that's what we've created over there. So I decided, I don't want to create that. I want to create that. And so I created something different. But then I started to listen again to other people. And not that listening to other people is a bad thing. I mean, you're listening to me right now. I don't mind other people, but I started to listen to not to the wrong people. I started to listen to people that weren't living in the same energy and understanding that I was. Now, here's the thing, and this is what I learned this time around, and this is what I'm really excited to start adding to our work. is what I learned is your DNA, guys, will always win. So it takes a long time to change our DNA. It takes a long time. It takes lifetimes and lifetimes for that DNA to change. It's just kind of a slow process. It's just how it works. But you want to know what's really cool? You can change your DNA expression real fast. Real fast. Like within weeks, maybe days. You can change that DNA expression. And this has even been proven from a medical standpoint. This has even been proven. Like for me, I can tell you a story specifically for me where genetically, I only produce the bad estrogen, the estrogen that causes endometriosis, ovarian cancer, breast cancer. I only produce that one. If you do my genes right now, that's the only one my genetics say I produce. But if you test my hormones, I'm only producing the good one. I've changed how my DNA expresses. Now, what that made me start thinking was I'm changing my DNA, which I do actually think we are with this work changing our DNA. I just think it takes a hot minute. I think it takes a little longer. So I kind of stopped focusing on the DNA expression piece and my nervous system piece and just kind of went on with my life and then had these little influences around. And you know what those little influences were doing? They were activating the old DNA. They were activating that old DNA that was there. And since I wasn't doing the work for my DNA expression and my nervous system, this started to win. And so have you ever had that happen where it's like you feel like you finally got there, things are working out, and then all of a sudden it's like the old ass patterns are back? And you're like, because that's how I was. Why are these old patterns back? What? I've gone years now with only my income going up. Why all of a sudden is it getting wonky? And then what happened was this. Is I forgot my own work and my own rules, which is don't blame what's going on out there for what's happening here. Figure out what's going on here. And I didn't do that. And why didn't I do that, you guys? Because that's a really hard thing to do. We don't often like to sit down with ourselves and be like, all right, how'd you fuck it up? It's way more easy for us to go, it's that. And so I started saying things like, well, this is just what happens to businesses. Businesses can't just like consistently keep going. Well, they can if you believe they can keep going. And you've done the work to change your DNA expression, to make your nervous system feel safe that can happen, then yeah, actually, that can happen. But I started doing all that. Why? Because it was almost like I didn't want to believe that I had dropped the ball. And at that point, I didn't even really know that I had dropped the ball. I didn't even know that I had dropped the ball because I was like, this is so wonky. And I always believe everything happens how it's supposed to happen and everything happens for a reason. So it was really an interesting period to go through in my life because I didn't make it mean a whole bunch. I wasn't sitting back being like, oh my God, I'm failing. It's not this. I started to just get really curious and I was like, okay, what's going on here? But I did question everything for a while, you guys. For a while, I was like, maybe we don't create our own reality. Shit, maybe it just happens how it happens. Like, maybe it was just a fluke. Maybe it was this. Maybe it was only because, and then that was kind of when a lot of the, all the Black Lives Matter stuff had happened about a year and a half before that. And that had kind of stuck with me because I had started to feel like this is where my eyes were really open to the fact that it's not an even playing field. That it's not an even playing field. Our world is not an even playing field when you're playing in the systems of the collective consciousness. And so then I started to be like, well, oh shit. Like, oh shit. Well, maybe like it's only because like I'm a pretty white girl that this actually worked. But you know what? It stopped working and I was still same color, same person, still wasn't working for me. And so it was interesting because a lot of these questions, I was questioning my own work. And when you question your own work, you guys, it's really hard to teach it. It's really hard to teach it. It's really hard to stand by it. It's really hard to talk about it because you're over here being like, but does it work? And I'm not a person that can just sell snake oil. Like, I'm not a person that can just get up here and be like, well, that didn't fucking work, but who cares? Sell it to the people. Like, it just, that does not work for me. And so as I started to have doubt and feel funky in it, it was like the whole business started to get wobbly and feel funky in it because like I was like, does this work? Like, God, I feel weird like selling this to people because like I'm not so sure right now. Like, I need a hot minute. And so I took that hot minute and I really rededicated myself back to the work. And I really learned a few things, which is you can't let up. You can't let up on the second half of this, which we're going to go over not today, but there's a whole part about really understanding your creating systems to uphold the new beliefs that you're creating for your gene expression. This whole keeping your nervous system safe during your expansion. And I had stopped doing that. And you want to know what, guys? I came back to this work and was like, I think I just need to go back to doing this stuff. And within weeks, literally within weeks, everything turned around. Everything turned around. My marriage, my kids, my money, my business, my health, within weeks. And that was when I was like, this works. This works. This is how the world works. And I really, like I said, I believe everything happens for how it's meant to happen, because that period of time allowed me to understand this work deeper, to believe in this work more, to explain it better, and to have this whole other piece to add to the formula that's going to just help you guys so that you don't do what I did. So that you don't create it and then all of a sudden you're like, why is it so wonky? So then when it gets wonky, you know why it's getting wonky. You know the steps to take so that it gets better, because it did. And it got better so freaking fast. And now it just keeps getting better. And I'm like, I'm back, baby. Like, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. And the cool thing about it is once you do kind of the stuff we're going to talk about on day 2 and day 3, which kind of the biohacking of the DNA, once you do that part, it gets real easy. We're talking, you got to spend like 5 to 10 minutes a day to make sure you're just doing the reinforcing part. And you got to just pay attention in your world. Okay. So we got the first 2 things we're understanding. Creating, you're doing it all the time. Universe always says yes, which again can be frustrating because you're like, but why isn't it happening for me? The third thing we have to understand, and this is often where we get most tripped up, is you are in charge. You are running this show. Not universe, not God, not whoever divine is hanging out here, not the guy next door, not the government, not the conspiracy theory you heard on the news the other day. You are. And this, I do believe, is one of the biggest reasons we end up not getting what we want in life, is because we don't understand that it's up to us. And part of the reason we don't understand it's up to us is because most of us have never been told that. This is where when you look at the world and you see that 1%, even really truly, it's really about 0.1% of the world owns the majority of the wealth and the majority of the power. Why? Because they know they do. And because they grew up in environments where people were telling them. If you look at somebody who's rich and has always had money versus somebody who is poor, somebody who is rich is going to tell you this: I control money. Money works for me. I decide how money comes to me. I figure out how to make money work for me. When you look at somebody who grew up in an environment and has a long ancestral history of not having an overflow of wealth or access to money, they believe money controls them. They believe the government controls them. They believe that the people who they work for controls them. And why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? That's been their reality. That's been what they have been told year over year, lifetime after lifetime, generation after generation. And then when you look at it, when you look at the collective consciousness has then put systems in place of marginalization and oppression to keep most people thinking and believing that they do not have the power over their lives. And so when you are already being told that, then you're plugged into a system that just keeps perpetuating this. It's hard to break out. It's hard to break out. It's one of the reasons why we will always be passionate at Hey You Human about offering free information like this and keeping our membership at a reasonable price and working with organizations to get it to people of need. Because sometimes you get so far down in the hole that unless someone gives you a hand or a rope or a something, you ain't coming out. You ain't coming out. And that's a lot of times when you look at this world, especially in America, we very much have this view of like, freaking do it. If I can do it, you can do it. If anybody can do it, you can do it. Yes and no. Innately, yes. Every single human on this freaking earth has the potential and the capability to create whatever it is they want. But they have to believe that. And that's working against sometimes hundreds of years, thousands of years, tens of thousands of years of shit DNA programming, coupled by then being plopped into an environment that makes it difficult. But if you are in an environment right now that makes it difficult, that's okay. The first step is believing that it can be different for you. And if you're here, it means you're already believing that. It means you're already on a path of saying, this can be different for me. So I get it. Corey, I don't have money to buy a can of Coke. Please help. I get it. But me helping you, I can't help you. You got to start with you. You first got to believe that this gets to happen for me. This gets to happen for me. And then this is where the magic of the universe starts to take over. Because once you start believing, and you hear of these people, you hear of like the Oprahs of this world or whoever who really pulled themselves out and changed their ancestral history in that way. You hear them where they had that one person that whispered in their ear, get out of here. I believe in you. You can do this. Go, 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 go. And it's interesting because they saw the opportunity show up for them. The opportunities were likely there for everyone else, but they saw them. They saw them. And furthermore, not only did their brain allow them to see them because they had already started working on that belief system of this gets to be for me, but then their nervous system felt safe enough to jump on it. Because that's often what happens. I bet you there's plenty of you guys that have had opportunities show up in your life, but you didn't go for it. Or you knew you needed to make this thing or do this thing, but you didn't do it. You did the old procrastination kind of thing, right? And that's often procrastination is 90% of the time a trauma response from your nervous system feeling unsafe to go to that next level. And your nervous system, you guys, when I say safe, your nervous system doesn't think of safe like you and I, right? Like safe is having more than enough money, having a beautiful home, having people that love and respect and adore you. That's safe. Safe to your nervous system is just what feels like normal and known. And so if you were raised in an environment that was chaotic, that dealt with lack, where there was never enough, where people commended you maybe for being broke, right? Like there's a lot of that. Like I often tell people when I see them and they're like, oh my God, I'm so broke and blah, blah, blah. And they bond over being broke. I'm like, you guys do realize you're just perpetuating the story that you're just going to stay broke. You're perpetuating to your nervous system that you make friends, connect, get accolades for being broke. So when you try to make money, your nervous system is going to say, whoa, no way. I'm going to stay over here broke because broke gets me connection. Broke gets me love. Broke gets me friends. Broke gets me all these things. If I'm rich, I don't know if I'll get those things. And then often you're programmed to believe that having money and wealth and all of that means bad things. Means you're going to be selfish. You're going to have to do bad things to get money. You often learned a whole bunch of other junk. And so your brain might be thinking, oh yeah, bring in the money, bring in the love, bring in the health, bring in all these things. But your nervous system is like, oh, no. We get the most praise when we're sick and broke. We get the most help when we're sick and broke. We don't know about that whole healthy rich thing. That, no. And so you're going to be in this constant annoyed state where you're wanting something, but you're going to keep not seeing the opportunities. And if you do see the opportunities, you're going to continue to not act on them or do the things that need to do, or do the things that will sabotage you. Ever heard of self-sabotage? Right? The gift we all have been given. That's just your nervous system safety mechanisms. Self-sabotage is just your nervous system safety mechanisms. Just your nervous system screaming, going, bah, not safe, shut it down. So you get the cold that doesn't let you to be able to do the thing, or you create the ridiculous thing that happens that stops you from being able to do the thing, right? Self-sabotage at its greatest. But it doesn't have to be that way. That's all our non-conscious creating. That's all our non-conscious creating. That is our nervous system and our ancestral DNA creating shit we don't want, coupled with the collective consciousness that's just adding to that. And it's a really interesting navigation of this world, you guys, because I don't necessarily believe in just bypassing what's happening in the world. I'm not one that's just going to say, oh my God, I never pay attention to anything negative that's happening in the world. At the end of the day, I live in this world with this. I can't just completely ignore it. But what I have to do is I have to start seeing it for the distraction that it is. And I have to start seeing where the solution can actually live. And not just buying into the bullshit that is this earth. And half the time I almost feel like our grand adventure here on earth is to actually figure out how to break out of that. Because like I said, when you go and look at history, it's like we've been doing that for ever. We've been doing the disease and the wars and, oh, these people over here, we've been doing it forever. We've been doing it forever. Because somewhere along the line, someone decided that there wasn't enough. And that goes back to the core of this. There's not enough. There's not enough. We got to fight for it. And we don't. There's more than enough. I mean, really, I want you to realize that when you think about it, the stuff we've created in this world, we just keep creating and creating and creating and creating and creating. Enough of us believe we want it. Boom, more comes in. Enough of us believe we want it. Boom, more comes in. I'll give you an example with money. There used to be this much money in the world. Now there's this much. Now we're creating new ways like crypto and all sorts of stuff to create even more flow of money. But you know what the problem is nobody's teaching the rest of the collective how to actually hold and utilize money. It's in your DNA, baby. It's in your DNA. Nobody's teaching you how to change that. And so what's happening? More money's coming in and the rich are getting richer. Because they know how to hold money, have money, spend money, make money, and they believe in money and having it. The rest of the world's over here bonding over brokenness, which just means the money comes in and it goes right back up. And so whenever people always say, I think it's funny with when people freak out about redistribution of wealth, I'm like, you don't have to be ever worried about the redistribution of wealth. If they redistributed wealth, it would take probably 3 years for it to just funnel right back up to where it was distributed from. You have to start teaching people this stuff about their power, their ability to create, their ability to hold, have, and be enough. I'm the biggest procrastinator. I know it wasn't always like this. Now, what's interesting about this is that often different life events will activate different pieces of our DNA. So I'll give you an example in my life with my reality. So when I was on the trajectory of making all of this money. It was like, it was going. It was the first time I had really, really been able to have and hold my own money. And it felt so good. It felt so good. Like I was like, it's finally mine. Prior to that, I had never, yes, Corey, I'm going to teach you how. We're going to be breaking this down like throughout the days. We're going to be breaking this down. And I had felt like for the first time in my life, it was mine. It was mine. I finally had money, my money. Prior to that, I always felt like it was my parents, or like I just had a lot of warped, non-conscious understandings of money. And plus being a woman, right? Let's be honest, it's only been about 70 years in the span of our collective consciousness that a woman was able to even have her own money, right? So I'm working against all sorts of stuff. I'm working against my own ancestry. I'm working against collective ancestry. And I'm working against a nervous system that prior to very recently didn't feel like it was mine. And so I was doing all the work at this point, right? My nervous system reprogramming, all of this stuff to make sure I felt safe with this money. And then I was working with a coach at this time. And she was someone who I put a lot of weight into in terms of like really believing her over myself. And we're going to talk about this too when we start to give our power to people. And I want you guys to know here, as I teach you this stuff, I'm really going to teach you the mold and the formula so that then you can start applying it to your life. And it might look different for you. You know, I tell people all the time when I teach them the rapid relief technique, hey, if you do it differently than me, that's fine. So remember, if I say something in here and you're like, that doesn't ring true for me, reject it. Figure out what rings true for you. For you. I have a lot of great teachings. I have a lot of great stuff to give. And if you just want to take some of it and leave the others, by all means, I have no problem with that. But I was working with this coach that I had put a lot of weight in, like really looked to her almost more than myself. And at some point, you know, I said to her, and at this point, you know, I had gone from having like, in like a year period, I probably went from having like $1,000 in my bank account to having like $500,000 cash in my bank account. Right. And that mainly happened in like a 6-month period. And so I was telling her about this and like how amazing it felt. And then I was like, do you think like, this is all in my personal account. Our business grew so fast. I hadn't even had time to like put it into like business, like do like all the business things. Right. And so she said to me, yeah, it needs to go in a business account. It's not yours. It's the company's. The company made that money, not you. And that was a pinnacle moment when things started to change for me. And I couldn't figure it out then, but those moments kept popping up in my head. And this is something for you guys to pay attention to. We'll talk more about this tomorrow. But those moments that keep running around in your head, those conversations, those people, those little things that you're like, God, why does that keep coming up in my head? Write them down. Because we're going to learn how to explore them, because that kept popping up into my head for a year while I was trying to figure all this out. And then I was doing a whole nother thing, a whole nother clearing thing with my emotions and stuff. And I got to this core belief of it's not mine. Nothing's mine. Nothing's mine. I had created that belief as a child. Nothing's mine. Nothing's mine. Nothing gets to be mine. And I had overridden it, right, through the work. But then she said that and it reactivated it. And so that's what's interesting with you saying I was never a procrastinator and now I am. So something happened in your external world likely that may have triggered something in your internal world on your nervous system that all of a sudden said, uh-oh, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe to go there. It's not safe. It's not safe. This is where it's interesting because, like I said, a lot of people will say, oh, the first step in creating your own reality is becoming aware. Yeah, kind of, but you're already aware of that. You're like, I'm a big procrastinator. You're aware of it. And you're like, and it wasn't always like this. Now, what we need to figure out is why? What feels unsafe to you? What story are you telling yourself? What are you procrastinating about? And what stories are running around this. And this is what we're going to talk about on day 2 and day 3. We're going to really talk about more the process. And day 3, we're going to really understand how to remove it and then how to really recode our belief system and then actually how to calm that nervous system for safety. Because those are the 2 things we got to have. We got to recode, we got to do the safety, and then only then can we do the reprogramming piece, the mindset piece, the actual thought part. That comes last. And so people aren't wrong when they talk about your thoughts. They matter. But they're like step 7 out of the 7 steps. So like if you're not doing the first 6, like you're going to get real frustrated when you're just doing the thoughts. You're the best gift of information and delicious education packaged in a beautiful human. Well, thank you, beautiful woman. Thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate that. So, what are our first steps? What do we have to do first? Okay. So first, when it comes to non-conscious creation, we have to start figuring out what we are creating non-consciously. So, step 1, we got to get really real with our reality. And we don't often like to get really real with our reality. We're like, ugh. And that's what I had to do. I had to sit down finally and be like, all right, this isn't the economy. This isn't this coach that I worked with's fault. I mean, like, yeah, she did tell me a lot of shitty things that influenced me. And this is where I'm saying, like, don't shame yourself into being like, it's never like anybody else's fault. Like, she was shitty. Like, she told me a lot of things that really fucked with my head and didn't work. Like, she should be out of business, quite honestly, right? And I have no problem speaking to that and speaking to the coaching industry and how there's a lot of stuff going on there that is not okay. And so it's not just to ignore that there's stuff happening in this world that isn't okay, but you almost like don't fully engage in it and know that it gets to be different for you. And so, I was for a long time just blaming, oh, this person did this, and it messed everything up, instead of stopping to say, okay, what the hell did she activate in me that like made this all go? What was the belief system? And so I had to get real with your reality, because here's the thing. You want to know what you are non-consciously creating? Just look at your damn reality. Your reality will show you what you are non-consciously creating yourself, what you are subliminally creating with the collective reality, and any of your ancestral crap. Look at what's happening in your reality. Look at it. If you are constantly having fights with your kids, somewhere in there you believe this is how a parent-child relationship works. If you feel like you are not supported and nobody listens to you and you're not seen and you're invisible, blah, 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 blah. It's not those people that aren't seeing you. It's that you think you don't get to be seen. It was like, why did I keep attracting women in my life that just like used me and then kind of like left me? Well, because that's what I believed. I believed women, some of them were good, but the ones that were closest to you would hurt you the most. Why? Well, likely because I had some trauma in there about my mom, feeling like the person who was closest to me hurt me the most. I had a sister who also hurt me a ton. And so I had grown up with my norm being the women who love you the most hurt you the most. And so until I actually went and healed that, felt all the feelings around it, I would just keep creating it. What we tend to do, you guys, is when things show up in our life that we don't want, we have a reaction, but we ignore it and we stuff it down into our bodies. And when we stuff it down into our bodies, all it does is reinforce that DNA, that nervous system, and continually keep creating that situation. And it creates that situation over and over again because the universe is screaming at us, being like, What you want is right here. You want women that love you and stand by your side and will be there with you no matter what. You want your ride and die girls? They're here. They're here. But I couldn't see them, and they were here. They've been there in my whole life. I have friends from high school that are still my friends, and I'm like, holy shit, yes, those girls have been there. But you know what? They weren't the girls that I was like, oh, because I was still looking for love in all the wrong places. And it wasn't until I went back to those core moments and healed that stuff with my mom that all of a sudden I could see it. And all of a sudden I was like, wow, no more women like that in my life. No more women like that in my life. And there won't be now. I don't need to set boundaries. I have standards, but you can't hold the standards if you still have pushed those things down and are creating things you don't freaking want, because that's all it's doing. You got to get them out. And the only way you get them out is you actually have to express them, which is more of what we're going to talk about on day 2 and day 3. So your first step is, I want you to get real with, this is your homework tonight. You need to get real with your reality. I want you to look at your reality and start seeing the things you don't like. I always do this. What's working? What's not? What needs to shift? What's working? What's not? What needs to shift? Okay, so we're going to look at those. Look at your reality. Your reality is going to tell you all that's underneath there. And then we need to look at what's working, what's not, and what needs to shift. And then we need to start deciding, what is it that we actually want? And this is hard for sometimes for people, because you often weren't allowed to want anything. You were often told what to want. The world often tells you who to be, what you should want, and how it should look. Right? So how do you know if it's an actual want or it's your nervous system keeping you safe? Right? So I often have people, when I say like, what do you want? They're like, I just want to watch Netflix all day. I don't want to do anything. And I'm like, really? Is that your want? Well, I want to have enough money so I don't have to think about money. And I want to have, like, what are your actual big wants? Because a lot of times, these little seemingly wants of like, oh, I want to watch Netflix. Oh, I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to do this. Those aren't real wants. Those are like these like procrastination-y wants that is our nervous system keeping us safe from actually seeing our bigger wants. And some of you may not know your wants until we get further down the process and you're actually able to start cleaning out some of the blocks around this. But one of the best ways you can, 2 things. 1, if you do know what you want, but you keep like waking up and saying, well, I don't really want to do those things. I want to just like mess around and do whatever I want. Then that's procrastination. And you need to figure out what is really behind that, because your real wants are actually over here. Those are your real wants. This is your nervous system trying to keep you safe because it's scared for you to go over here. So you need to start telling your nervous system, which we're going to learn how to do, is, oh, it's okay. It's okay to do this. Now, again, if you don't know what you want, part of that can come as we do more of the work, because a lot of times you got to clear out these blocks and these things to really be able to see what it is you want. We're often not clear because, again, our nervous system's scared. Our nervous system's like, oh my God, if this girl knew what she wants, we'd have to go do it. And that's just scary. So yikes. Now, the other place you can really start to see where your secret wants are that you're denying yourself is in your judgments. So who are you judging? Who are you judging? And you want to know, when I was going through that little period where everything wasn't working out for me and I was really not being true to myself, who was I judging? Rich, white, privileged women who are out living fantastic lives, who are out spending money freely. And I kept looking at them and being like, oh my God, you shouldn't be spending money like that. You should be helping the world. You should be doing that. You know what? Let me tell you a little bit about me. When I don't spend money freely, when I don't live in my frivolous, luxurious, glamorous life that I like, I don't make any money. And when I don't make any money, I can't do jack shit to help the world. I can't get my workout. I can't have tons of money to just help people. I'm basically useless. Useless. I just like contract into this ball of like blame and nothingness. When I do live my life and spend freely and frivolously, I'll be honest, it can be very frivolous. I make oodles and oodles and oodles of money. And through that, I can continue to help the world. I can continue to get my work out. So it's really interesting because who I am is that. But I didn't want to be that. I was judging myself for who I was. And it came out in me judging other people. So my true want is to be that, is to be somebody of massive means, is to be who I am, a white privileged woman of massive means who is able, because of that, to cause immense shifts and change throughout this world and have an immense, amazing experience doing it. That's who I wanted to be. And I was over here judging me. They should do that. So go look at your judgments. If it's health you're working on, if it's finance, you may want to pick a area to kind of concentrate your homework on. You can do all the areas. And in the membership, we actually walk you through doing all the areas. But if you want to just focus on whatever your most like prioritized area is right now, if you're here to focus on health, if you're here to focus on finances, if you're here to focus on a marriage, if you're here to focus on, whatever it might be, you may want to focus on that and go to, get real with that reality. Start looking at what's working, what's not, what needs to shift, and what do I want? And what are my judgments around this area? And like, guys, people, you love not to see your judgments. Like, you'll be like, well, that's not a judgment. That's like really what it is. Like, right? Like, that's how I felt with these ladies as I was judging. I'm like, well, it's not a judgment. It's a judgment. Like, they're all judgments. Unless you can look at somebody, even people who are doing shitty things in the world and be like, oh yeah, I guess that's shitty, but like, that's their path. Like, then that's not a judgment. If you're over here being like, I can't believe they would do that. Well, it's not a judgment because that's a bad thing to do. Yeah, maybe, but there's something in there for you. This is the thing about judgments. They can be confusing. This is why I love our membership, because when you have them, you can drop them in our feed and we can give you feedback on like what's really behind there. Because like people will be like, well, I'm over here judging fat people, but like, I don't really feel like I hate fat people and I don't want to be fat, right? So like, why am I judging this person? Well, maybe you're judging them for not having a perfect body, but being able to go out into public and not care and just rock who they are, regardless if they fit the social, standard mold of what a person should look like. So a lot of times our judgments, they tell us a lot. They tell us so much. They tell us where we're denying our wants. They tell us where we're denying who we truly are, and where we're angry at humanity, where we're angry at pieces and parts of the human experience. And if we're angry at pieces and parts of the human experience, it's really hard for us to find our full power. And so your judgments are a big deal. So your steps for today: get real with your reality. What's working? What's not? What needs to shift? What do you want? Look at our judgments. Yes, judgments show us where we're not free. They show us where we've given our power away and locked ourselves up. And creating your own reality requires power and freedom, baby. Oh, I should say, you are creating your own reality. Creating more of what you want in your reality. Power and freedom. What am I denying when I see someone hoarding or living in really unsanitary conditions? So let's think about this. So if you're over here and you're judging people like, oh my God, that's gross, you're disgusting, I would reflect that back on you, Mary, and actually say, where are you maybe trying to almost like, maybe where you need to like let yourself loosen up a bit? Like, are you spending a lot of time like cleaning and making everything perfect and making everything like absolutely like, how it should be versus just like living your life? and just like going out and doing and not worrying so much about the perfectionism, not worrying so much about what things look like. Because, like hoarders and unsanitary stuff, like, I don't care. I don't know if you've ever been in a hoarder's house. I had an aunt that was a hoarder, and the pictures my dad sent when she died were horrendous. I mean, like, yeah, I had no idea, like, just like the mounds of stuff. And to me, it was just kind of like fascinating. Like, I was like, wow, gosh, somebody could live like that. So get curious, Mary. Ask yourself, point the finger back at you. Ask yourself what could be in there. This is an exploratory journey. And you often know, guys, when you've hit something on that, you often know because you'll get emotional. How do you know when you've hit something around the judgment? Is you're exploring, is you're throwing out different phrases of what it could be. All of a sudden you'll say something like, this was when I was kind of doing the exploring thing about like, it's not mine. And I said, it's not mine. And I was like, oh, like there was the emotion. And now, and this is what we're going to talk about the next 2 days, is now the key to that is to not ignore the emotion, is to actually allow that emotion to come out of our bodies, because that's where we actually start to be able to change the DNA expression, change the nervous system so that we can recode, calm, and then reprogram. Because that's what we got to do so that we can actually create more of what we want. We got to recode that expression. We got to create a safety environment for our nervous system. And then we got to reprogram that brain so that they're all on board and we get what we want. Was a roommate, decided I couldn't stay around this. And sometimes, Mary, too, you got to look, these judgments also come back to, was there somebody in your past? Was there a mom, a dad? Was there an environment that you were in when you were little that was very dirty? And it really, created some stuff. And now the universe is telling you, girlfriend, you got to evolve past this. We got to work through all of this emotion because right now it's in there creating stuff you don't want. You've declared you want this. And this is why, guys, when we decide what we want, shit often hits the fan. It's because you're declaring what you want. And the universe is like, yes, baby, yes. Real quick, though, let me show you all the things that are in complete and total resistance to this. Let me show you all the beliefs. And so they all kind of flush themselves out. And you can move through them real quickly if you learn what we're going to teach tomorrow and the next day. So it's actually very helpful for us. And so I created a messy life. Maybe you can't stand messes because you just don't really want to look at the mess that your life is. Who knows? Go explore. We'll be interested tomorrow to hear what you learned. All right, beautiful humans. I hope you enjoyed day 1. I enjoyed it. I love teaching this stuff. Please feel free to email us at support@heyyouhuman.com if you have any questions. Go do your homework. We will be back here, same place, same time tomorrow. If you know somebody who would love this, invite them. Invite them. The more people that know this and understand this, the easier our world is going to get. The easier your life is going to get when you have more people that understand these concepts. So please share this, invite them. The more, the merrier. And we will see you guys back here tomorrow. Thank you for all the beautiful love from you guys. And yeah. See you tomorrow, same time, same place for day 2, where we're really going to be talking about biohacking our DNA expression. So I will see you there, beauties. Bye.